The year is 94 BC, and in the loud, overcrowded slums of the Subura, a 6-year-old boy is growing up in a house that smells of old marble and older debt. His name, Julius Caesar, is ancient and elite, but behind the doors that name opens, there is only crushing poverty. From his window, he watches the soft-handed senators pass in their litters. He realizes with absolute clarity that in the city of Rome, an elite name without enforceable power is nothing more than noise. At 18, he is hunted. The dictator Sulla has seized Rome and is drafting death lists that become warrants by morning. Caesar flees north, bribing guards and sleeping in barns to stay ahead of the soldiers. He emerges from the dark with a vital realization: survival is an active, calculated skill. Despite his ambition, by age 32, he is essentially irrelevant. He is currently governing a minor province in Spain, settling endless, trivial land disputes at the very edge of the world, while the true center of power remains out of reach. While standing before this statue of Alexander the Great, Caesar begins to weep. Alexander had reached the edge of the known world by this exact age, while Caesar has spent his youth standing still. He writes his resignation that night and returns to Rome. He will no longer wait for his turn on the political ladder. He will build a systematic, unyielding playbook to dominate every domain of Roman society. He begins with Domain 1, commanding reality. While held hostage by Cilician pirates, he refuses the role of the victim. When they name a ransom of 20 talents, he simply laughs, telling them he is worth at least 50 talents. He spends 38 days demanding their complete silence while he sleeps and reciting poetry at them during their dinner. He tells them exactly what he will do once he is free. They find it entertaining until he returns with 4 armed Roman vessels, hunts them down, and crucifies every single one of them. He establishes a core, unbreakable principle: command the reality of the room and always mean exactly what you say. In Rome, he borrows at catastrophic rates. This diagram shows Caesar treating massive debt as fuel. He floods streets with grain and arenas with gladiators, buying absolute public adoration and ensuring his election to Pontifex Maximus. By weaponizing debt, Caesar makes himself politically indispensable. He bypasses the traditional aristocracy completely, forcing the elite to watch as the lower classes scream his name aloud. His third domain is absolute military supremacy. Caesar secures the unbreakable loyalty of his legions by enduring the same conditions they do. He marches 20 miles a day through unmapped forests and eats the same rations as the men behind him. Against Vercingetorix, Caesar builds a ring of walls around the enemy stronghold and a second outward-facing wall against reinforcements. The strategy brings total surrender. 1 million dead, 1 million enslaved, and Rome's borders expand permanently to the Rhine. The Senate attempts to trap him at the Rubicon River. By law, if he crosses with his army, he is a criminal. If he crosses alone, he will be murdered. Caesar's response to a trap is always more momentum. He says, "The die is cast," and steps into the water. He commits fully to the action, forcing his enemies to react to his pace. He pursues his rival Pompey across the world to Egypt. When he is presented with Pompey's severed head, he turns away immediately so his officers cannot see his face. He mourns a fellow Roman, showing a calculated respect even in victory. Caesar conquers the world by removing the middle ground. He either absorbs you into his momentum or he crushes you under it. By 44 BC, his victory is absolute. He is dictator for life. His face is on the currency, and the calendar itself is renamed to honor him. But he applies a tactical playbook to a domain it cannot control, the pride of the elite. He pardons former enemies like Brutus, expecting logical loyalty in return for his mercy. He fails in the performance of power. When he receives the Senate while remaining seated in his ivory chair, he deeply insults the aristocratic pride of the men who still consider themselves his peers. Fear turns into something colder. These men see a king who has made their entire lives and careers obsolete. On the Ides of March, they swarm him in the Senate Hall. Caesar is stabbed 23 times by the very men whose lives he had pardoned and whose careers he had built. Seeing Brutus with a blade in his hand, Caesar performs his final act. He pulls his toga over his face so none of them can watch him fall. Caesar built an empire through systematic dominance, but the same mechanics he used to seize power blinded him to the human pride of the men standing right beside him.